Konnichiwa, Alec here, and this video is my overview of where I'm at, what I did, how long it took, what I think, all in relation to remembering the kanji. So let's get it. So if you don't know what remembering the kanji is, essentially this dude named Heisig created this system in which you learn how to handwrite all 3,000 kanji by taking a kanji and having a English keyword associated to it. Then what you do is you learn primitive elements, then you use sentences based on those primitive elements that include the keyword of the kanji you're learning. So just as an example of this, you have the kanji for woman, and you have the kanji for child, then you make the sentence, women are fond of their children, and that's how you remember how to make the kanji for fond. Now, when I started this, it was unbeknownst to the world that Matt vs. Japan, who was one of the pioneers of AJATT, or MIA if you will, he had come out recently with a blog article about starting lazy kanji before doing Heisig's original written method. And what lazy kanji is on the front, you have the kanji, and on the back, you just have the keyword, right? So you would have the kanji for fond, and then on the back, you would have fond. Whereas the way that I did it was you had the word fond on the front, and then you had to remember the story and draw it based on the story that you remember. So I handwrote all 3,000 kanji. It took me about 5 weeks. I was doing 60 to 80 new kanji per day. So if you ever have the question of, you know, is this too much? Is it too fast? I don't believe that you can do it too fast. 60 to 80 was a lot. I spent a ton of time doing it, but I was able to retain the information. Of course, there's ones that I got wrong, etc., etc. There's ones that I got confused on. But I would have got confused on them whether or not I was doing 60 kanji a day or 5 kanji a day, because a lot of keywords were very similar and a lot of the actual kanji themselves were very similar. So now my retention rate of these kanji. So for about a whole month after I finished the 3,000 kanji, my retention rate was very high. It was about 90%. And honestly, you know, I felt very good about where I was in terms of being able to recall the kanji, and more specifically, being able to write the kanji. However, I was unable to ever, and still to this day, right, about over 2 months into AJATT from doing monolingual cards, I'm still unable to look at a vocab word that I don't know and come up with a general idea based upon the kanji. So this is where the whole idea of lazy kanji comes in. So if you see a vocab word that you don't know, let's say gonran, right, for chaos, right? It has 2 kanji in it. One of them is the kanji for riot, and one of them is the kanji for mix. So if you were to see that word and not know what it means, you'd be able to understand that if you mix a riot, you have some type of chaos, right? You'd at least be able to know that it's something negative that's happening. I, on the other hand, because I did the handwriting kanji, was unable to do that. So every word that I learned, I had to decipher the definition and then, you know, sentence dive down in order to figure out what it means. I had no hints in terms of knowing the kanji from remembering the kanji. So, you know, a lot of people would say, oh, well, then you wasted 5 weeks of your life learning how to handwrite these kanji. And that's not entirely true. I know that Matt vs. Japan got a lot of backlash on later revising his MIA description, saying that you should do lazy kanji first. And I understand why he said that, and I experienced it. However, I do not feel like I wasted my time in handwriting these kanji. And the reason why is once I learned a word, I was able to go, oh, well, I know the kanji for that. I've done it before. So then I would go into my kanji deck, find the kanji that, you know, the word has, and then put in the hiragana for what that word was. So now, whenever I get to that card, I see the hiragana of the word that I know from my sentence decks, and then can equate the hand-drawn picture to pronunciation. So I actually used remembering the kanji for pronunciation, not for vocab recognition. And it's actually worked out pretty well, especially considering a lot of the kanji have very similar meanings. So when I see like yasashi or ureshi, I can actually, pronounce them correctly and understand which one is which because I know how to handwrite them and have handwritten them with the hiragana there to differentiate between the two. Whereas the kanji are so similar that I might not have been able to pronounce them correctly or understand which, pronunciation is used in which if I had just done lazy kanji. But with that being said, after about 2 months finishing, my ability to recall the sentences started to fade. So I already knew that remembering the kanji the way that I did it was not going to help me for vocab recognition. So I used it for, like I said, for pronunciation and being able to, come up with the correct way to pronounce that kanji in certain settings. So, in the word field, for some of the words, I'll have, the verb of that where the kanji comes at the beginning and is pronounced a certain way. And then another word that's maybe a noun where it's used second and is pronounced a completely different way. That way, when I get to that card and I handwrite it, I know that it's pronounced 2 different ways, and I have 2 words that I've learned through monolingual cards that I can relate them to. But, like I said, what started to happen is my ability to recall these sentences was waning. So I came to the conclusion, well, I might as well just do lazy kanji, because then I might be able to get the vocab recognition out of it, but I still want to be able to retain how to draw these kanji. So what I started doing is every time I got a word wrong, I would go back and where the key word was, I would put in parentheses the primitive elements that were used to make up that kanji. So, you had something like to protect, right? You have the word to protect, segu. You have pinnacle and direction. So, the story was something like I made like a JRPG story about like you use the pinnacle of direction when your team's getting attacked or something like that, right? Something stupid. But anyway, then I put pinnacle and direction in parentheses, and it's up to me to learn how to draw it just based upon that. And a lot of people will be like, oh, well, that's cheating. But you have to understand that I used the original RTK specifically to learn how to handwrite them, not vocab recognition, like I said. So in doing this, it forces me to learn how to write it because I only have primitive elements, but it does reinforce what the kanji actually looks like. So here I am after 2 months of doing monolingual translations, and I had just started now doing lazy kanji. I'm doing 50 cards a day. I took Brit vs. Japan, I took his deck, and I'm doing 50 new cards a day, so in 2 months that should be all repped out. And then I'll do them both side by side, but that's pretty much where I am with my remembering the kanji. So just in conclusion, right, took me 5 weeks. My retention rate was good, but once I started getting filled with all this other knowledge, couldn't get them sentences, so I put the primitive elements on the front. But all in all, I loved it in the fact that it has really helped me learn how to pronounce words, especially kanji that have multiple pronunciations, by putting the words in the word field of the kanji deck as I do it. Now, what I'm probably going to do in a little bit is reset the deck and go through it again, just because some of the cards, that for the first 2 months I got really good, I'm not going to see them again for another 2 months and might have forgotten them. So, we'll see how that goes, but right now I'm just really trying to focus on the lazy kanji method so that I can hopefully bridge the gap between the two so that I not only have pronunciation of the kanji, but also vocab recognition through just looking at the kanji. So, hope you liked it. This is my overview. If you have any questions, comment, like, subscribe. Let's get it.